Hello and welcome to My Mom's Basement, presented by Barstool Sports, and the very first comic book club edition of My Mom's Basement with our favorite guest, Jose Youngs. The first edition of the comic book club, I really should have said, not hello and welcome to My Mom's Basement, but hello and welcome to Battle World, because that's where we're going with Secret Wars. The original Secret Wars, we prepared everyone for this. I'm hoping nobody like read Hickman's Secret Wars and they're coming to this one and they're like, here I am. And it's
that would be a jarring.
Yeah, this is Jim Shooter's Secret Wars, correct? Mike Heck did the pencils on it, or Mike Zeck, not Mike Heck. He's an MMA guy. It's been an MMA weekend, so that's why I'm confused. Bob Layton as well. John Beatty was the main anchor. Jack Abel, Mike Esposito. Wanted to shout out all of the creators. This was the first time I ever read Secret Wars. It was the first time Clem ever read Secret Wars as we prepare for the MCU to go down this journey. Jose, I assume you have a much more storied history with Secret Wars. So let's start there.
Yeah. So when you guys posted your copies of it, I have the one. I'm holding it up for only the audio people, but my copy is from like 1999, 1990, maybe even earlier. Awesome. Might have been 96. No, it has to be before 99 because this is my original copy that I bought in Falmouth, Maine I can't even remember the comic book store. That's how long ago it was. I was telling Robbie when I saw him in Vegas for Noche UFC, this might be one of my 5 first graphic novels I've ever got. And I know my uncle got it for me. So I read this when I was 7, 8 years old in elementary school. So it's been a long time. And I've periodically reread it. And this is probably one of my most borrowed comic books I have.
Everyone's always, it makes sense too, being that all of the heroes are in it and reading a little bit about why this got made and basically to sell toys. It makes sense why all the heroes are in it, but it's such an appealing cover and storyline when you hear all the heroes and villains going to Battle World to deck it out. But what was surprising to me as a first-time reader was how nuanced and layered some of the inner conflicts are. I don't know if you felt the same way, Clem, where I was reading it and I was like, I know that this was made to sell toys, but I almost can't imagine a 7-year-old reading this and comprehending everything that like they're talking about here.
Oh no, yeah, it's a grown-up comic book because AJ's been looking at it, and we're in Fortnite. Marvel thing's going to be here for another like month and a half, and he is loving it. And then he's like, Dad, what's this? And then he starts reading. He's like, whoa. He just put
like
it down.
Half the time it's like I'm expecting the whole thing to be like the third act of Endgame, just like crazy heroes, villains, every team up, mashup you would never expect. Every other panel, it's someone complaining that they miss their wife.
Yeah. Everyone's gone soft. This is the post. We've become heroes. We've become celebrities. Now we just miss our girls. This is a band on its second, third album, right? That's how it feels with all these people. And then the inner conflict between, obviously, you have these heroes getting to know each other, which I didn't realize this was the first like huge, large scale collab. And the fact, like you said, Bob, it was all about toys. So hooray capitalism for once again giving us something we would have never gotten. The name Secret Wars, like you said, that just pops. The ensemble cast is awesome, but the name is incredible as well. And then I even loved the way that they introduced it all with each comic, which I appreciated. If you had like the 12 comic books of the Secret Wars, you wouldn't know. That's the good thing about these like the saga issues is that they go to the X-Men where the X-Men go. They go to the Spider-Man issue where Spider-Man goes. And I just kind of loved how you felt like you were kind of getting a little glimpse into what was going on in those universes before they all come together. So it was very cool. And again, it's incredible. And I can't wait to see the way the MCU does it. The Magnet Man is such a fucking interesting character that just it's incredible. And the Avengers are wary of him. The X-Men, vouch for him. And even like as you're reading, you're like, I don't know what he's gonna do right now. I thought in the last issue, I'm like, now Magneto's gonna make his move.
Is this post or pre-trial of Magneto? Because I know it's around that time, right?
This is I'm glad you like. This is really
so
the
that's
first
part of the
big,
reason they are vouching
yes,
for him, right? They're like, he just
yes,
fucking turned
correct,
himself in and we put him on trial. Yeah.
correct. And this was like Marvel at this point in time. The Avengers were a big old nothing burger in the 80s. I think I talked a little bit about it when they did the X-Men 97 show. The Avengers were just kind of bleh. Like Iron Man was whack, Captain America was whack, Wasp was whack, but like the big names were Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four to an extent, and then Spider-Man. Those were the big ones, but these were the ones that could sell toys. But so a lot of people, if you read Fantastic Four or you read Spider-Man or you read Daredevil or anyone else, like you didn't really read others. It was very territorial, like professional wrestling is. Like if you're an AEW fan, you don't watch WWE and vice versa. Like, so they had to figure out a way to explain why things were happening to people while also trying not to alienate people that had already been established readers of certain characters, which I think they did a very good job of.
I loved the first time team ups. It actually reminded me of, some of the movies that we've seen in the MCU where I was like, oh shit, movies have already been inspired by Secret Wars, movies like Infinity War, when the Guardians and, the Avengers meet for the first time, and they kind of have these interesting conflicts where they don't know who to trust, and some people know more about the actual information at hand than others, but it's who do you want to let know and stuff like that.
Bob, I'm happy you said that because, and again, not comparing us to fucking superheroes here, but it was a very similar dynamic. I remember when we opened HQ at Barstool and we all knew each other through the internet. And it's like, we all kind of had the same, goal. We were funny people and you're like kind of original, but like you got to see people kind of like pair off and like, oh, and these are two guys that would have never met. It's like, oh, Riggs and Trent are hanging out now. Right. And it's like, people you wouldn't have usually seen in the same room are now all under one building, and then you have the PMT guys, and you have the little sex, but then you have these SECTS, not SES. And then, I mean, maybe that too. I don't know. I wasn't really in the office that much. Yeah. But it was very cool to see how people would pair off, and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool, and just the kind of like different dynamics they would have. So that's something I didn't see coming as well. And Jose, I don't want to like take it another direction here, but like. What like do you know what it was back then? Would it be like maybe the Fantastic Four would have like a Spider-Man appearance and that was it?
I'm really glad you brought it up. This is the real first big crossover thing we've had in Marvel, and it was solely, obviously, like Robbie said, to sell toys for Mattel. I think it was originally called Cosmic Guardians, which is a pretty lame name. And then from what I know,
oh my god, that's horrible.
I think it was it might have been Cosmic Champions, or it's Cosmic something
too, yeah.
But I know Marvel, they said, hey, they went up to Jim Shooter, who we can talk about Jim Shooter later. He's not my favorite. He's not a lot of people. He is not a lot of people's favorite. But he did really good in this, and I think someone in Marvel, like upper, like not obviously not the writing staff, but like maybe legal or like research and development, they were like, hey, we've tested, and the phrases like war and secret, like kids really like that. He goes, all right, Secret Wars it is, and then he just rolled with that. But this is because this is pre-internet, pre-movies. This is very much like kids would take toys and say like, oh, and then smash them together and be like, oh, Spider-Man is going to fight Wolverine. And then your friend would be like, no, Wolverine would kill Spider-Man. And then your other friend was like, oh, no, because he has Nightcrawler and he'll help. So this is very much like settling arguments that you would have on the blacktop. And not even, and like, if you read it, and we'll get into it, there's really not like when Spider-Man fights or has like some sort of conflict with the X-Men, or Iron Man has some sort of conflict with someone else, and Hulk and vice versa. There's really no ending. It's just to showcase how powerful these individuals are. But this entire book basically originates from arguments that kids would have between who would win between their favorite heroes. And this is really the first time we've ever gotten that.
There's a lot of that, especially in the beginning of the book too, where they're trying to like establish levels for everyone. It felt like where they send Galactus up to confront the Beyonder, and he fucking swats him down like a fly. And it's like showing everyone, okay, you know how powerful Galactus is already. Now take into account the Beyonder's power,
Right.
or something like where he'll suck the life out of Ultron and stuff. Like the first two that got knocked out in the book in my notes I had were Ultron and Galactus. I was like, oh my God, they really let everyone know up front, this is how we're doing Secret Wars. And I appreciated that too. I thought that was sweet.
And I think what Jim Shooter and Mike Zeck and Bob Layton did that I think it's just so fantastic is they showed there's not a lot of jump cuts. There's a lot of dialogue filling the gaps, like, oh, what do superheroes do when they're not fighting crime? Like that's what this kind of shows.
Opera. Yeah,
it's very soap
straight
opera-y.
up like people hanging around talking.
Yeah.
You've got the Wasp and Magneto scenes where they're getting all cozy because the storm is outside and they can't leave. Like
we in the business like to call this era of Magneto his fuckboy era, because he really was. Because he really was. He was a handsome man and he knew what he was doing. But what I love about this arc is they had like big moments that would showcase how powerful people are, like the Beyonder, and it's stuff that sticks with you in your head for the rest of, like, you'll never read a Hulk story again the same way after you saw him holding up a mountain, after you saw Magneto taking out all the X-Men or all of the heroes by himself by just blowing up a building, or Galactus sucking out Ultron's powers, or Spider-Man beating up the X-Men, which had never happened before, and really just kind of established Spider-Man being the man. Or this is, if you wanted to pinpoint a moment in time that really started or was the beginning of the Iron Wars arc, this was kind of it, because before this, Iron Man had cool armor, but it didn't really go into how powerful it could be. So that scene when Iron Man blows through the mountain and he's like, oh my God, I didn't even know my suit could do this. Like, we didn't either. So, like, this is exactly how it is. Or Human Torch using his Nova Flame, or She-Hulk beating up the Wrecking Crew, or just like Beyonder just melting Doom that one time. So they use these big, like 3-4 panels to showcase power while not making everyone else seem weak. And it sticks with you forever. And I think it's such perfect writing. It's a perfect amalgamation of art and writing.
All right, want to take a quick time out from the glorious comic book club to talk to you about our friends at Gametime. Gametime, long time friend of Barstool Sports from the top on down. Everyone loves Gametime, including the Basement Boys. Help keep the lights on, baby. Help keep the lights on in the basement. And sometimes you got to leave the basement, go out and enjoy a live event. And we love them all here in the basement. We kind of touch everything. We got concerts, football games, comedy shows. And we always use Gametime, the official ticketing partner of Barstool Sports. You know how much we love Gametime. Now with their brand new Gametime Picks feature, they're making it even easier to get to a game. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I got it here on the phone. Little Gametime Picks button there. You click that, and then it gives me all these ticket options for, I'm looking at Cowboys, Giants, Thursday night football, potential win for the Giants. Maybe the Giants are good. Maybe the Cowboys aren't. I don't know. So I'm excited for tonight, early in the season. You got to love that. I'm looking at tickets right now for Cowboys, Giants, Thursday night. End zone, row 17, section 148, $114 a pop. That's the best deal according to the Gametime Picks. And listen, when I'm a Giants fan, I know this is the way it works. Cowboys fans are always trying to take over other team stadiums because they're quote unquote America's team. And especially when you have to deal with those gabagool Yankee fans that then become Cowboys fans once the fall hits. So you're dealing with all that stuff. That's why I got to use your Gametime Picks to be able to get the best seats possible for the best deal. So what are you waiting for? I'm going to buy those Cowboys Giants Thursday night tickets now with the Gametime Picks. So download the Gametime app today and use code MMB to easily score great deals with new Gametime Picks. What time is it? Game time. Back to the club.
I'm also going to say, though, obviously you'll be jumping around here. Kind of did two other things for me, and these are my X-Men, and these are clearly older times. These are before even I was reading. Colossus is just a pussy.
Oh my God. Dude, I had in my notes. Literally, I'm going down here. My note, it's like in the third act, We're in the home stretch. I don't care about the Colossus Zaji storyline. I don't even know how you say her name.
Zaji,
but
yeah,
the fact that her and Johnny Storm fell for her too.
And we will get into something that was retconned, which I actually really like. I was kind of teasing Robbie about it. Did
they retcon some of this stuff?
Yes, they did. They retcons pretty much the entire Secret Wars, and I actually like it. Like it.
And then my other beef was Rogue is just trash in this entire fucking saga. Which you know, it's a different Rogue than we know now, and she's a villain now. She's becoming a good person, and you see, I appreciated the part where she doesn't know if she's really gonna like help the villains out at some point. And then I guess we didn't even really touch on the villains. The villains kind of just getting to know each other, and they kind of like group up and stay grouped up, where the heroes are kind of in conflict. I love how that works, but the villains, like, no one truly trusts each other because you know that guy is just as sick and twisted as you are.
In hindsight, when they first arrive on Battleworld, the villains are pretty OP. The villains would win that battle. Now, looking ahead to like current times, it is very much the opposite. Like if you have like the Maker with Mr. Fantastic, the current Iron Man, current Thor, especially current Spider-Man, who is just like current Rogue, like you said, Storm. But at the time when I was reading this, I'm like, well, for the 80s, this is a pretty overmatched heroes crew right here.
Yes, Storm herself, we don't really get to see her do much. She tells off Professor X in that one scene, which is pretty sweet. Yeah. But the whole time that they're like, oh, we got to stay inside because there's this crazy storm out on Battleworld, I'm like, oh, I know who's going to be able to save the day here.
Nope.
It's just like, no, she can't control the weather there.
A lot of it too.
One of the villains, I couldn't believe how big of a factor Molecule Man and Claw were.
I think one of the original times I was on your show, I brought up Claw. I can't remember what the conversation was. It might have been like people that are in the movies that are just not remotely close to what they are in the comic books.
Yeah,
Claw is always my first example, and Molecule Man is such an interesting character. He's so powerful. Like too powerful at times that
I was going to say, is he so powerful you can't do him in a movie?
It will be because the thing about Molecule Man that's so interesting is he's so incredibly overpowered, but he's such a weakling, like mentally. So that kind of balances it out. Like you saw at the beginning of this before Dr. Doom unlocked his mind, but he plays a big role in Secret Wars 2, where you kind of get the origin story of him and kind of the origin story of Beyonder. And then he pops in now and then, and he's in a pretty fantastic arc of Dark Avengers when Norman Osborn was leading the Avengers. And it's how we get the explanation for Sentry's power. That Sentry is not just a Superman type thing, because Molecule Man doesn't control molecules. It's like subatomic particles, because controlling molecules would just be insane. That's just such an that's just not possible. It's obviously not possible, but it explains that the Sentry's powers is very much on a subatomic level too, and they kind of show the parallels of their origin stories are very similar in one of both. So one of them is a scientist and one of them is like a drug addict, but it's very similar. And he's fun character, and I think he was perfect for this role. But I don't know how. But like you said, I don't know if they can put that in a movie. That's crazy.
I have no idea. And Claw, Claw in the movies is obviously Andy Serkis, and he's in the Black Panther movies. He plays him in a real cool kind of like arms dealer way. In this, he looks like the fucking Tick or something. He looks so goofy. And then by the end, it's like, oh, he's in the final scenes with Dr. I mean, he has like the Beyonder's power inside of him for a moment. I could not believe that he was like one of the final villains. I also didn't know that, and this is going to be something that I'm sure comic fans are going to be like, you're such an idiot for not knowing that. I didn't know that Doom and Kang had such a pre-established rivalry.
Okay, this is...
They hate each other in this.
Yes, in this. But their history together is so convoluted that it's been retconned so much. Like, I don't know.
Did they retcon this? Because in this, they're obviously like, they don't trust each other. Kang shoots him down, thinks he killed him, and then Doom fucking goes.
In this era, 1984, whatever. It is a highly implied that Doom and Kang are related, but then is he actually related to Mr. Fantastic, or is he actually related to Nathan Richards? But is it Nathan Richards his son, or is it Nathan Richards his father, or is
We're
it
getting
all
back into the
or
Kang
is it
verse
all
here.
of them? Because like it's heavy.
Yeah.
It is at this point in time. It's heavily alluded that Doom, and because I even think Doom says it. He's like, "Oh, my future self or my future like relative or whatever." But this was dropped. Like this was sort of dropped at the time, and then it's also implied that Reed Richards' father is related, but then it's also implied that it's both of them, like because it's time travel. Like, did Kang come from the future to the past, and then is he Nathan Richards' father, who then also became the father of Kang? Is he his own grandfather? It's very complicated. It could be both. It could be neither. We don't know.
I'm curious to see if they do Doomsday and Secret Wars. Like, are they going to get rid of Kang prior to Secret Wars? They probably will with, what we know about the Jonathan Major stuff, unless they go for the full recast. But Kang is like a big part of this story. So I was like, you could still like keep him looped in, I think, in the MCU.
Let me say this too, because people I think are going to be screaming at their iPhone or whatever the list is on, or YouTube. We know that probably the Secret Wars, I've heard Secret Wars 2 might be taking a lot from there.
Yes.
We will read that at some point. We have plenty of time to read that. Jose, if he's gracious enough, will
I
come
would
on
love nothing more.
Fix our brains as that, fuck stuff up. But I think there are different ways that it could go based on whatever happens this year.
There are I think there's 4 Secret Wars titles. There's Secret Wars 1, 2, there's the Hickman one, and then there's the one from like the early 2000s with like Spider-Man, Luke Cage, Daredevil, Captain. It's all like the street level heroes. They invade Latveria and get their mind wiped. I've talked about it on the show, and all 4 Secret Wars are 10 out of 10s.
Wow.
That's real rare.
Okay, so
they better nail this movie for the comic fans.
The Secret Wars Hickman run is how they introduce Miles Morales to the Earth 616 world in the comics. That's how they combine, rather than combining planets to make Battleworld, they combined universes to make Battleworld. And then they just kept, that's how they that was the beginning of the end of the original Ultimate Universe.
And by the way, speaking of the combining planets, Denver had to be the little sass meme of like, why me? Why am I here? I couldn't believe they're like, oh, and like, let's go back to Denver for a moment. Yeah. It had to be kind of nice. You get a little slice of home when you go back there. But geez, poor Denver.
That's a great
I guess it brought Julia Carpenter into the story, right? She was
the second Spider-Woman. Yeah, the second Spider-Woman. And there is I don't remember the title. I think it came out in the mid 2000s, 2005, 2006. There's like a mini series of heroes where it's like more downtime, because this is such a popular arc that they've had a lot of not retcons, but additions to like side stories to this. There's like an arc where like Spider-Man is like, oh, woe is me, as Spider-Man does, and like just goes to Denver while he's on Battleworld and like mingles with civilians on Battleworld, and they're like obviously the humans are freaked out, and Spider-Man just has to be a hero. So it's a fun little.
I want to read that.
It's fine.
Yeah, I like
if
that.
I find it, I'll tweet it out, because I'm sure people will want to find it.
I have to admit, Battleworld is much different than I thought it was going to be. Again, I knew nothing about Secret Wars going into this, and it sounds like I think Secret Wars 2, where you're combining. You said Secret Wars 2 is where
the Hickman run. That's the most recent one.
Okay.
Secret Wars 2 is very much a continuation of this story.
Okay. I do feel like we will probably get something like that, just because we haven't had the X-Men. I don't know how the Fantastic Four are going to play into this, and if we really are going to use some of this to combine the MCU. I mean, I guess we'll see. But Battleworld in general, I thought it was going to be like a planet that was made for battling instead of just kind of like lumped together by the Beyonder.
So it was made to, like, if you notice, it's just Earth and rocks. It's like the Dragon Ball Z planets they fight. Like there's no
and then like 2 big bases. And it's like a base the size of Chicago or whatever, and then they have Doom Base, which Doom Base sounds awesome.
Exactly. And then they have a bunch of vehicles, and it is exactly what you think it is. It's to sell toys.
Yeah.
So like what kid wouldn't want 2 bases and a bunch of vehicles and a bunch of action figures to throw around. It is literally what it looks like.
It's like a rare case of that creating good content, though. Usually when like they make products just to sell toys, it's fucking Batman and Robin. And
that's what they did for Young Justice, and Young Justice slaps.
Good point. Good point. I didn't even know Young Justice was just a toy venture.
It absolutely was.
Makes sense, though. I want to go through some of my notes because I was just taking notes the entire time I was reading Secret Wars and putting my little commentary in there. One thing I appreciated about the MCU after reading this, one of the first things Spider-Man says before Secret Wars even starts, when we're reading the little prelude about how he got to Central Park and got transported, he references George Lucas in like his second panel. And I was like, oh my God, the Tom Holland Spider-Man throws it back and makes his Empire Strikes Back references and stuff. All of the splash pages, oh my God, are so awesome. It must have been so fun to be the artist too and be like, yeah, you get to draw all of the heroes on this one. You get to draw all of the villains on the next one. The big lineup pages, even in the beginning, where it's like every hero introduces themselves. I loved, what was the name of the dragon? Lockheed?
Lockheed, yeah.
I liked the dragon showing up in the beginning and then you don't see him until the end. Like that was great. One of my favorite lines, the line that maybe made me laugh the hardest in the entire book, was right up front when Ultron doesn't know what's going on. He just goes, I am Ultron. I do not understand the events transpiring. That's pretty much me at all times. Like, I don't know what's going on. I'll be honest. That was me in the Tunnel of Chaos with Dana White. I said, I am Robbie Fox. I do not understand the events transpiring. Doom base again, killer name. Doom could take control of Ultron and Secret Wars as well. I wrote down in terms of the MCU. They're about to bring Ultron back into the MCU. I think that would be cool.
And this is, I think, Ultron 11. This is the 11th Ultron.
In this book?
Yeah. I think
this is God. I this is Ultron 1. This is the 80s.
This is all like because Ultron keeps this at this point in time. Ultron is an incredibly popular character. So he was like, oh, we need to bump up sales, throw in Ultron. Like it's very much how
he be at this point the Avengers' most famous villain.
That's a good question.
He'd probably be up there, right?
He'd be way up there in terms of popularity. He'd be way up there. I think this is Ultra 11. He had just been defeated like not too long ago. So this was like he came back to life in like he was deactivated and then woke up on Battleworld. So they could do the same
Loki in the MCU what they did with Ultron in the comics.
Correct.
They're like, but people love Hiddleston. We got
exactly. It's back. Like the 90s with Carnage and Venom. It's like, oh, how do we increase sales? How do we increase Silver Surfer sales? Have him fight Carnage. Like, okay.
And about what we were saying at the beginning about this book seeming so mature, were comics of this era, was this just how comics were written, or was this considered like a more mature take on the heroes?
This is, I think it's very, oh no, this is right around when they started to get more mature because Spider-Man started to deal with the drug epidemic of New York. Daredevil was starting to pop off. The X-Men were dealing with like, they would kind of tie in like the racism of America to the mutant hatred. Captain America obviously fighting Nazis. Rhodey, because that's also, we haven't mentioned, this is not Tony Stark.
Tony Stark.
Rhodey. So it's like Black Iron Man. So this is very much when it started. This is actually kind of not what Spider-Man was and Daredevil and even the Hulk was dealing with at the time. Was not any like this was not. This is because this is a cosmic event. This is not dealing with like beating up a crack dealer. So, but yes, this is around the time when Stanley was like, "Oh, I wouldn't do this in the comic books." I'm like, "Well, you're not here, guys. Sorry."
Yeah, I was gonna say Stanley not at Marvel at this time.
I think he is,
but just isn't like in creative power.
This is might have when he moved to California and started the West Coast branch, similar to the West Coast Avengers. And Jim Shooter, I think this led to him being editor-in-chief, or he wasn't already editor-in-chief. And I'll say this about Jim Shooter: he was very good at the time, but he had his thing was, this is how I want to do it, and I don't care if you're right and I'm wrong. I want it this way. That was his style of editing. He was also incredibly homophobic, so which is. like who's the character from Alpha Flight that's gay? It's gonna drive me crazy.
I thought you said Alf. I'm like, I thought you said Alf. I'm like, damn, they had an anti-homophobic character, Alf.
So there's a character, Northwind. It's gonna drive me crazy. I'll remember by the end of the episode. But like that character was written to be gay, but the creator had to hide the fact that he was gay. And then the only gay incidences in like portrayal of homosexuality in the comic books was like Bruce Banner went to jail and got like assaulted by 2 gay prisoners. So like Jim Shooter was very problematic
and like chased a lot of people out of Marvel, right?
A ton of people were chased out of Marvel because they just didn't want to deal with him. So it's this weird thing where he's very good for what he did right there. And this arc, Secret Wars, shaped the Marvel universe for the next 20 years. And he started it. And he was very much like, oh, you're writing the Hulk? Well, this is what the Hulk's doing in Secret Wars, so you're going to have to deal with it. There was no collaboration. So he was a pain in the ass to work with. He was very good writer, and then he just didn't evolve. So eventually he was fired from Marvel, and I think he started Valiant Comics, which is another good offshoot of comics. But he was not everyone's cup of tea, and like even to like John Byrne, who himself is I think a comic book genius, but again a very problematic dude. For John Byrne to be like, I can't work with this guy. That should just tell you how difficult he was.
I love when Jose has a take, whether he loves a guy or hates a guy. It's always interesting, and you're always fair. Like you're like, the guy's a genius. He's also nice. I mean, we're kind of seeing the other way. A guy who is very pro gay, obviously Bo DeMayo, and we're seeing he was his own. We're getting a new story every day with Bo DeMayo, and I'm like, Robbie, if this was 10 years ago and the internet wasn't so sensitive, it would just be like we just covered this story, but it's so crazy. I'm like, I don't even know.
We don't want to touch it.
Yeah, we don't want to touch it.
That's a very good. They're like 2 problematic peoples on different sides of the sport.
Yes.
That's very funny. That's very, very funny.
I loved the whole thing with Galactus when he just gets stood on the mountain. He's like that fucking the Jesus statue in Rio, and he's just standing there on the mountain. Everyone's staring at him, and then when he moves at the end of that issue, I need that in the movie. When they make Secret Wars, I want the moment where Reed Richards looks up and he's like, oh no, he moved. Like that is a moment right there.
This is very interesting with the Galactus part specifically, when Mr. Fantastic is trying to reason with him, and we saw Ultron kind of get swatted away because he bumped into him, and then he ignored Doom. But what I love about again, Jim Shooter, just be a better person, because I love how I love your storytelling in this, and you're reading between the lines of things, but like just be better. This was around the time where they did the trial of Reed Richards, which is Mr. Fantastic. Mr. Fantastic
saves
Galactus's life, and he was put on trial because of all the people moving forward that could lose their lives because of Galactus. And he argued with that Galactus is not an individual to be saved, but a force of nature that, like Thanos says, balances the world. Like you need that destructive force. So the only person, there you go, Clem, exactly. And there's only one and if you read that, and then you see the only person that Galactus acknowledges is Mr. Fantastic, but they don't say, oh, I remember when you, because like this is, again, like when they're at the bases and they're talking, they're like overly descriptive. They're like, oh, that wind is coming over here. We better circle the base. Spider-Man, you go to the west. I'll do this because I did that. Like everything is externally narrated. There's none of that. You just have to be in the know. And that's why I loved that aspect of that's what I love about Jim Shooter's storytelling is if you read Trial of Reed Richards, you know why Galactus acknowledged him.
And they touched on it briefly, but I was like, there's a lot more there. I didn't realize they went into it, and I figured they did, but interesting.
I like that scene a lot when he goes up and meets with Galactus and he's all, respectful to him. And he's like, I'm honored to be chosen to even,
because
be in your
he knows how to like get in.
And this is 84.
I think so. Yes.
I'll tell you what, I swear to God, reading that scene, I was like, this is reminding me so much of the Emperor bringing Luke Skywalker up into the throne room. It's the year after Return of the Jedi came out. There's a chance that was a little inspired.
Could be.
I was going to make a different comp, and I don't know if I want to make it now, but I'm going to say it. Like, it's kind of like when Portnoy was in the office and just like quietly doing his thing. And there's like 3 people. It's like Gaz can talk to him. Robbie, you're probably one of the few people too. You gotta
like lead with something he loves. You know, you gotta be like, how's Miss Peaches? Or, hey, Baby Yoda, have you seen him lately? You know,
that's funny you mentioned that, because since I've been on this show, I get recognized for being on in your mom's basement more than my MMA content. And the first question is always, how's Portnoy? I'm like, I don't know. Couldn't tell you. I don't think people in the office can tell you. So I don't know.
No, usually not.
He's a force of nature, Jose. He's not even a person at this point.
so he's the Galactus of Barstool.
100%. I have to say this, though. I get the Galactus concept, but I also cannot fully grasp the Galactus concept, and I'm very interested to see how they bring that into the MCU, because that's a lot for like people like us to take. I'd say like Jose, you can understand it. I think Robbie's the next level down, and then we're going closer to the commoners, and then like my kids would be like, that guy's scary. That's all I know about him.
So what's so fascinating by Galactus, and again, this is all reading between the lines, especially in this is so beneath him. Like, say this universe ends, like it doesn't matter, because Galactus is from the universe before time existed. He is the holdover. So his universe ended, and then eternity, if you've seen the famous photo, is creating the universe in his palm, and you kind of see it in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 when who is it? Oh my God, what's his name?
Ego? Yeah.
No, Star-Lord is like, what do you see? And his eyes are covered in stars, and he says, I see eternity. That's obviously the eternity creative of the universe. Galactus is the sole survivor of the universe before this universe. So he died with that universe, was reborn in this universe, and will die with this universe and be reborn in the other. So he doesn't care if this universe ends, because he's like, I'm golden. Like, I'll just get reborn as Galactus once again. So this is so beneath him, which is, again, a very fascinating aspect of Galactus.
And it's also fascinating that he immediately sees the Beyonder, and he's like, oh, he can like take away my hunger or whatever. Let me go like talk to him about it. And Galactus obviously treats him like he does. I thought, Clem, you must have appreciated the one panel where the thing's like, I can't watch the Mets, so I guess I'll go see what so-and-so's doing.
I almost tweeted out a picture and being like, been there, done that, Ben. I love Ben Grimm's like personality and like just the way he talks. And I'm like, that is kind of what a Mets fan is. There's a lot of grit in that fucking guy's soul from watching this stupid
film. I love Ben.
And he also has a Shrek 2 arc in this one. He just turns into a human. He doesn't know why. He turns back, and then he has to go back and forth. I like where they leave him at the end. I like how it kind of, the story like ends with the thing in a way.
So this is very much a woe is me thing. This whole like, remember when I loved even when I was little, the scene outside of all the big battles, like the most famous scene in all the Secret Wars is the very beginning, because the phrase "I am from the beyond" is an iconic. That is up there with great power comes great responsibility. That is one of the 10 most famous lines in Marvel comic books. But the scene that really stood out for me when I was a kid was when Thing is like kind of like, you know, sulking around the base, and then he stumbles upon, was it Captain America and Mr. Fantastic talking? And they're like, oh, I just miss my wife. And then Thing is just like, they don't want to deal with a guy like me. And then just like, I'm like, damn, Thing, like, have some respect for yourself. But when he turns back into when he turns back into Ben Grimm from the Thing, at this point in time, Mr. Fantastic in the comic books always assumes that he could do that at will. Like, that should have been a power he should have been able to do, sort of like Human Torch. Like, he can go back and forth, or Invisible Girl's not always invisible. But it's because it's a mental block. Like, it's a woe is me block that's keeping him from doing that. So when he stays behind, he becomes like not a space pirate, but like a space explorer. Like he explores.
Was it good?
Space.
Like the continuation of his storyline? Because I liked when they put like She-Hulk in the Fantastic Four. I was like, that kind of works. That fits.
I wish they did more with it because it wasn't long enough. Eventually, he just went back to Earth and just took up being the Thing again. Yeah, I'm like, huh. Like, I wish they had made it like a 3-4 year arc, because then when Thing went back, it would have been a
pirate thing. Yeah,
cool. And he's like zipping around like just exploring and just doing his thing. And then when he leaves Battleworld disintegrates because he's the last holdout from the reason it's there. He's the only reason that it's holding together. And Battleworld becomes, at this point after Secret Wars, becomes a planet where wishes come true. So people like,
which at the end is basically what it is, right? Where like they realize that they're like, if you have the desire, strong enough willpower and desire, you can basically make something happen. Which begs the question: did I get Oasis back together? I think I willed it. I think I had the desire strong enough.
I love that. That's so funny.
And again, he goes back because he misses his, warm embrace of his boo, like all these fucking guys. So
I couldn't believe
married,
that, like,
girlfriends, honeymoons. It's all the fucking like the single dudes are probably just like, I'm cool up here, man. I love Battleworld. It's it's like a bachelor party or you're in college with all your single friends.
And that was I think Cyclops, I read, when he's missing Jean, a little tie into X-Men 97, he's missing Madeline Pryor, correct?
Boom. I was about to say, hey, no, Jean. This is back when Cyclops is being that weird.
Like, you don't know that if you read the book, but I was reading about it afterwards, the Wikipedia and stuff, and I was like, oh, shit, that's a fun little tie-in. If you just watched X-Men 97 and read this with us, he's missing Madeline Pryor back on Earth.
Hey, man, Jean's capable of some pretty cool shit, I bet, but someone named the Goblin Queen does stuff that a girl like Jean Grey don't even think about doing. It's a respectable woman.
This is also right around the time where I tweeted out that thread after we did the podcast because people were asking me about stuff. It's that famous issue where Storm and Cyclops fight. Like, they get into a physical fight over the leader of the X-Men, and Storm wins. So Storm is technically leader of the X-Men for this arc.
And the leader of the team here, that conversation was interesting, where everyone's deferring power, and they're like, probably shouldn't be me. Like Mr. Fantastic even is like, my mind's on the wife at home. Someone else should probably step in. And I think it winds up being Cap, right? Cap winds up being the leader.
It has to be Captain America. But again,
but that Wasp is the leader of the Avengers at this point, which was weird for me to wrap my brain around.
Wasp is, I was texting about, Wasp is a very underrated and integral character to like arcs that have been like throughout time, because she seems to be one of the main constants in the Avengers. For as big of a revolving door as the Avengers lineup has, the Wasp is very much like, even when Ant-Man leaves or Giant Man leaves because he has his own issues, Wasp is always there. Like, so she's kind of like the linchpin of the Avengers. Without the Wasp, like, when people make their lineup of best Avengers and they don't include her, I'm like, it just doesn't work.
You're like casual.
Exactly. 100%. Like the big three, she is the big three of Cap, Iron Man, Thor. That it starts with them, and then outside of that, you can form whoever you want. But Wasp and Ant-Man need to be in the Avengers.
Did you? Oh, I guess I'll ask Robbie, since Jose, you've been reading these since before the movies. I was reading these in the actors' voices in the beginning, especially.
Yeah,
like
like Magneto, I feel like I was reading X-Men 97 voice.
Oh, yes, probably. But I was definitely like, Thor is so like, I haven't read comics in years, and Thor is just speaking like Thor, like a straight up asshole. Let's be honest. He's talking by Odin's beard, and then Cap is such the goody two shoes Boy Scout, and Tony Stark has his little like, it's not even Tony Stark. I didn't realize till later on in it, but it's like he's kind of a little more casual and fun. Yeah. So it was kind of funny. I'm like, oh shit, like I've already been programmed to hear these guys in my head.
And definitely like Chris Evans when I read Captain America at this point.
And like I said at the beginning, when they showed like these scenes of like Hulk holding the mountain and Galactus doing the thing with Ultron and Spider-Man beating up the X-Men, it's like these moments that showcase how powerful they are. Captain America's moment is them choosing him as leader. Has nothing to do with physical confrontation. It's very much to do with Cap's leader. And it is the reason there's this great arc called Justice League versus Avengers, drawn by the late Master George Perez, and Captain America is voted by both the Justice League and the Avengers to lead the final assault.
Wow.
And it is
Wow.
why. So he hangs back in the base, and there's a moment when Captain America goes, Superman, I want you to take this into battle. And he gives Superman the shield. And then Superman catches Thor's hammer. So there's that scene when Superman has Thor's hammer with Captain America's shield. And I'm like, this is just the best thing in the world.
And listen, there's been no bigger, sometimes tongue-in-cheek critic of Cap than me on this podcast, just basically to get under Robbie's skin. But I mean, once he picked up Mjolnir, and that's when it was like, oh shit, that's the dude.
Yeah.
And in this like book, I was like, the fact everyone is like, so like, we have to go to this. They kill Watts. We got to do this. And Cap's like, no. And they're like, okay, I guess we can't do that. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Cap,
he make sure the team sticks together at all times. Everyone's trying to fraction off, and they do fraction off, and they get mad at him for not being always pro mutant. That like one scene in this, I was like, oh, this is kind of like the X-Men 97 scene
with Wolverine. Oh, yeah, that's such a good scene when he's
really well written.
He's like, oh yeah, I wrote that down.
Wolverine's
too.
Wolverine's written so well in this because he's kind of a dick, but like he's so Wolverine, he's so Logan.
Yeah, it's so good. Like, oh man, that scene with when Wolverine, he's like, oh, mutants can't rely on humankind.
Yeah,
this really does. Like it talks about it, but then you don't really talk. But then Avengers versus X-Men also like basically like they have that same scene. This is like the beginning of it. It's such a good scene. Again, Jim Shooter, be better. Be better. You're so good.
Jim Shooter has like 99 overalls on all his like ratings, and then it's like Humanity 1.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
Fuck, perfectly higher.
Perfectly put. I'm like, it's like all this action, and then like this fantastic dialogue, and then like I'm like, God, just be a better person.
All right, we're taking another quick break from the Comic Book Club to talk to you about our friends at Turtle Beach. Today's episode is brought to you by Turtle Beach, the #1 brand in gaming headsets and accessories. And their new Gen 3 Stealth 600 headset picks up so much crystal clear sound, it's basically cheating. I absolutely love it, guys. You guys know I got a little bit of a big noggin here, even without the hair. But even despite that, it's hard to find a headset that feels good, that sounds good, that makes you, I mean, let's be honest, when you're in the gaming world, you have to kind of get into the right frame of mind. Right over there is the PlayStation, and I'm throwing on the headsets and, going to battle every single time. That's what we love about Turtle Beach headsets. Their headsets are so freaking comfortable. You'll feel like you're wearing a marshmallow cloud pillow on your head. Now that sounds like a glorious thing, doesn't it? Then best of all, Turtle Beach has Stealth 600 models for PlayStation, PC, and Xbox, including cross capability and Bluetooth. So one headset for all your systems. We know Bob Fox has been an Xbox guy forever. I'm a PlayStation guy, and this bridges us together. Turtle Beach doesn't just have amazing headsets. They have every gaming accessory you could ever want, and they're all high quality at prices that don't break the bank, from flight and racing simulators, our boy PFT loves, to controllers, keyboards, and mice. Turtle Beach is the ultimate gaming cheat code. So get the ultimate immersive gaming experience with Turtle Beach today. For a limited time only, head to turtlebeach.com and use code BASEMENT for 10% off your order. That's 10% off your... That's 10% off your order at turtlebeach.com with promo code BASEMENT. We know we got a whole bunch of gamers here. I bet a lot of people, they're reading the comic books and they're going to play their games. So if you want to, get some accessories, headsets, whatever it may be, go to turtlebeach.com. Use code BASEMENT. Keep the lights on here and support our friends at Turtle Beach. Back to the book club. Comic book club. Come on. We're not full-grown adults. Still comic book club.
Obviously I love the Spider-Man versus X-Men scene where like he's just bouncing around, they can't even like touch him. I like that misunderstanding too, when he's kind of crawling around, creeping, he sees the X-Men talking by themselves, and he's like, I think they're up to something no good.
But I do like how, again, whenever someone becomes they start to show someone is a little too powerful, he can't handle a telepath, and that's how they bring him back down. Perfectly
immediately balanced. Professor X is like, you don't remember
balanced.
that. Yeah.
Perfectly balanced.
I wrote, damn Magneto, Mr. Steal Yo Wasp.
Oh, those piercing blue eyes. Oh, those piercing blue eyes.
I know it, man.
Oh, goodness.
This was also so funny. How about Doom being like, hey, I need some backup, and he goes and makes himself 2 bad bitches.
Oh, Volcana and Titania. They
come out of the test tube looking like models of the era. It's like, Doom, I know what you're up to there.
Titania plays a big part in Immortal Hulk. the current, well, not, it's, I guess it's over now, but like that recent Hulk run, that is 10 out of 10. That's the best one. That's probably the best Hulk run since like the 90s, I want to say.
Oh, wow.
And Volcana is just fun. She's always been like that. The one, her relationship with the Molecule Man is kind of a fun little thing. But there's an, I cannot remember the issue, but they kind of go back into their backstory too, and they're both just outcasts in Denver. And this is why, like, again, they take these two weaklings and just make them dope. I know it, man.
Poor Denver, man. And then RIP my dog Wasp. Like they make us think Wasp is dead for a big part of this story.
Exactly.
But the way they dump her body initially is kind of savage.
It's very much like ancient Greece, where they're like, "Come get your hero," and just throw them down.
And she kind of plays like the Phil Coulson role, if you want to relate everything back to the movies, where they have to rally around her. There's also like conflict around that too, because the heroes a lot of them are like, all right, let's go kill them because they killed Wasp. And it needs to be for a while, like, let's calm down and talk about this, because we need to make sure that we don't walk into a trap here.
Was one of the covers Death of an Avenger, and it had her dead, like, and they're mourning her?
Dude, every single cover
is fantastic.
Banger.
Slaps.
Every single one. When you get to that like red break in the page, every single one is good.
It's because they want you to walk down the aisle, and this is before the internet, where the only way you could get it was when you see it.
Here it is.
Yeah, it's all spectacular. Yep.
Death of an Avenger. And there she is on the bottom of the page if you're watching on any of the videos.
So good.
That so and the like you said, the ensemble pictures in the beginning where you'd see like all the heroes and then all the villains. Every single one hit.
And
I couldn't believe getting to every cover. I was like, they're throwing a perfect fucking game in the covers.
This is the beginning of the introducing of Titania and her relationship with the Absorbing Man, which is a very on again, off again, toxic Joker Harley Quinn relationship.
Another guy didn't know anything about.
So
never read anything with the Absorbing Man.
Absorbing Man, you could write an entire arc where he wipes out the Avengers single-handedly, and it would not be unfeasible for that to happen, because he is so powerful but so dumb that he just doesn't realize how powerful he is. And they kind of go into it on this one. He regrows his arm.
That's the first time they make him into the stone, right? And he just puts it back on, twists it. And he's
that
like,
was a major development. That was the first time we got to see that happen. And he is such an underrated character, and he could wipe out all the Avengers and all the X. Like, he could just touch like adamantium and just become adamantium. He could touch vibranium and become vibranium. He can do that. Like, you saw, like, Ultron can blast him and he just absorbs the energy. Like, he is basically what Molecule Man is, except he does it in a physical form. He is so OP, but that he is such a stupid, lumbering idiot that he just doesn't get it.
Molecule Man is too sensitive for his own good. Where it's like, he is everything going to be all right? Yeah. And he's like, he doesn't want this life. And this guy, Absorbing Man, he's like, I love this life. And again, him and his girl, every relationship where the guy calls the girl by a body part, where he just calls her legs, like, that is doomed from the fucking jump.
Legs, that's classic, like 1950s. Like, I know this is the 80s, but that's like 50s.
And by the way, they drew them. They drew sinners in those fucking. Jesus Christ, the Enchantress too.
Another one of the funniest moments in the entire book is when Doom is trying to steal the power of Galactus but fails, and then he jumps into bed all depressed, and he's just tired, like, inconsolable. Even Cap, when he goes and tries to talk to him, Doom's just like, I don't want to talk about this. He's just so upset in his bed. That cracked me up every time.
It's that's just trying to show you how powerful Beyonder is, because Doom's thing is, if I can't have it, no one can have it. Like, if my
Speaking of power, I mean, how about the Enchantress power not working on Cap because he's an alpha male?
Yes, he is
literally. Like, she tries to use the powers on him, doesn't work, and then later on, when they're trying to use like the power of the Beyonder to like atomize him, he's just walking through it. He's an alpha male, which also is confusing.
This is I was gonna wait to get to that. So that again, Jim Shooter, be better, because it's such a good scene where we don't if it's a lot of reading between the lines. It's one of two things that happens, and they don't explain it. And I think both answers are right, and it's why it's such a fascinating scene where the scene, but again, when Doom quote unquote destroys the heroes, but with that big energy blast, and then like Zaji does this and all whatever, Claw is telling Doom like, well, this could be happening, but it might not be happening. But because Doom can do whatever he wants, did he accidentally manifest it and make it happen with his reality bending powers? Because he doesn't actually want the heroes dead. He's just, and he also doesn't know how to control his heroes.
Poking at him a little bit.
And so the end, it's one of two things. It's either like internally, Doom doesn't want to kill Captain America, so he's killing him, but is it subconsciously resurrecting him, or it is Claw with the Beyonder's powers in the backgrounds,
because his eyes are lighting up a little bit,
bringing him back to life. It is one of those two, and we don't know what it is, and both of them are right.
Yeah, I like that.
I like that as well. I like Captain America just being too alpha for anyone's powers.
100%. And when he surviving the Nova Blast too with the shield was great.
Shooter was getting off on that too. He's like, now this is a man's man. He kills him all for that.
100%.
Johnny Storm, going back a little bit, Johnny Storm being able to overheat Ultron was good, because I assume just all technology in the 80s, like the worst thing that could happen to it was it overheating.
That's a good point. That's very funny. The Wasp taking out Ultron was also a fun little moment too.
Yep. Wasp lives.
It was just a way to show how she's dead, but like, let me remind you, I'm not just this damsel in distress that can be swayed by Magneto. I could also take out the supreme robot single-handedly.
And then she talked about like her manicurist being, a million miles away. It was a very interesting character, something I did not expect from Wasp.
I'm going to be honest. I'm going to put my hand up and I'm going to say something that might get me attacked here. Yes, and I got to be honest in the basement. We're 52 minutes into this podcast, so I'm really burying the take. You got to be one of us to like be here already, This is the comic where Spidey gets the black suit for the first time. Little underwhelming that it's just a magic costume machine he walks into. Okay. I thought it was going to be some symbiote, sick origin, Venom shit. No, it's like, hey, we got this. Thor's like, hey, they could just make any costume you want. Walk in there, and he comes out and he's Venom. And I was like, oh, I mean, the suit looks amazing. I love the blue details on it, like the shadows and stuff. But I was just like,
all right, guys, buckle up.
Right. Yes.
Buckle the fuck up,
because I feel this is the deep breathing starting.
This is where, so I like how you brought up the blue, because there's a big argument online in the forums and in the world and in this comic community. What is your favorite symbiote, black symbiote variation? Is it the blue highlights? Is it white highlights? Or is it purple highlights? I like the blue guy. I am a blue guy. The purple one, I think, works very well in the Ultimate Universe. And the white one, I think, works really well when Flash Thompson is Venom. But I am a blue guy through and through. Anyway, this is where that retconned moment really starts to come into play. And they explain the reason. Okay, so the reason before I get into that, the reason the symbiote is in that little room is, I'm sure you guys saw the Venom trailer, the new Venom trailer. If you haven't, they show Null, the god of the symbiotes, who has been there before time existed. He predates everything. He predates almost everything. The symbiotes are created to, become a symbiotic relationship with an organic individual, and then kind of corrupts their mind and like take over their body like a parasite does. For some reason, this symbiote was, he wanted to work with his host. He didn't want to be evil. He didn't want to be a bad guy. He wanted to he wanted to be a good hero. And the other symbionts are like, nah, you're weird, and put him in jail, basically. And then that jail was taken, wherever that jail was in the universe, was a world that was stripped from that world to be put on the battle world.
It was the Denver of another planet.
It was the Denver of another planet. So that is essentially Spider-Man freeing the symbiote from jail accidentally. Wow,
okay.
Now I say that, but the retconned, and this is new, and I like it. Some people hate it. There is a comic book series called Deadpool's Secret Wars.
Okay.
And the whole thing is Deadpool was there with the heroes the whole time, and we just don't know. So
it's what people wanted them to do a little bit with like putting Daredevil or putting Deadpool and Wolverine in Endgame, and we didn't know it the whole time. Like that they thought they would do that in the movie. It's like they did that in the comics.
So they did it in the comic books, and he is there from the beginning. Like he shows up in that big splash page, and is just his weird guy, right? And then like he falls in love with Zaji too. He hooks up with the Wasp. He's doing all this, like he runs into the final room to confront Doom with Captain America and saves the day. His face gets healed, so he's like a handsome man with a big beard and long flowing hair. And when he goes in, when his suit is all ripped up and everything, and there's a lot of stuff that happens into that we don't really that again, it's like 6 issues to go through, and he goes in to get his new suit, and I didn't think it was canon. It has since been kind of confirmed it's canon, where he's like, oh, I'm going to fix my suit. And then the symbiote pops out and it crawls on him. And he's just like, oh, this is weird. So Deadpool wears the symbiote before Spider-Man. But then he recognizes that it's a living creature. And he goes, this isn't fair. I can't do this to a living creature. So he puts it back. And then walks out, and Spider-Man walks in. He's like, oh, yeah, there's a machine right there. And then Spider-Man gets the ball. Now, it is, again, heavily implied in this issue that when Deadpool wears it, he goes, I would hate, I think his exact phrase is, I would hate for my crazy to drive this symbiote insane.
Oh.
So Deadpool's psychotic warped mind is the reason why the symbiote becomes evil. Is because
I kind of love that.
I love that too.
So it's all Deadpool's fault. He made this symbiote crazy, and then eventually,
and the fact that you like this, I know you're not the biggest Deadpool fan in the world, so I feel like this is like I need to read Deadpool's Secret Wars next.
We also like decades later learned that's not a spider on the why would, if Deadpool wore it first,
make that?
Why would it be a spider? This symbol, right, or it's on the back of yours, that symbol is a dragon, which is Null's battle seal. So that is Null, God of the Universe's dragon battle seal that he also wears on his chest. So that's not a spider. That was also on Deadpool's chest. Deadpool basically saves the whole day. He's not the sole reason that it saves the day, but he's like part of the team that storms the base, and he's the reason the symbiote's crazy and all this other stuff. And then but he obviously hooks up with the Wasp when he's handsome. He also hooks up with Zaji, and then when everyone dies, he saves Zaji, who then saves
and then
Colossus.
She saves everyone.
So Deadpool is the one so Zaji dies, and then Deadpool saves her, who then she saves everyone else. And then at the end, when his face gets kind of mutated and melty again, the Wasp sees him and is like, ugh. And
oh man.
So Deadpool feels bad about himself because Wasp only liked him when he was handsome, because this Wasp is very kind of self-absorbed, and Wasp feels so bad that she kind of hates herself for it. She's like, how could I be so shallow? So her wish at the end is to forget she ever hooked up with Deadpool. And then Battle World took that as, we want everyone to forget Deadpool in general. So that's why no one remembers Deadpool was there, because the Wasp goes, I gotta forget this one night.
That sounds awesome.
So that Deadpool's is wiped from everyone's memory. That's why he's not in this original Secret Wars. And then it flashed, because Deadpool also falls in love with Zaji in this point too. And then it flashes to his wish was to bring Zaji back to life. So then it ends with a flash to her planet. Back when because her planet goes back to her Denver goes back to her planet. And it's all of her people walking around. She's walking down the streets with a kid and waving to people. It's not his kid, but her child with one of her own kind. And it's a very kind of cute ending. So his wish was to bring Zaji back. Wasp's wish was to make everyone forget Deadpool existed.
I have to admit, though, I thought it was kind of hilarious that Zaji was the only person who basically ends up dead at the end of all this.
Yeah.
Like, that was hilarious. Like, the one pure soul of everyone. And
Yep.
And also the one that probably didn't have an action figure for sale.
Probably not.
You know,
Probably not. But yes, definitely go read Deadpool's Secret War.
that sounds awesome.
It's
That
a
sounds
fun
like
little. It's a fun
hysterical.
thing.
It also sounds like it must have been the most fun book to ever write. If you're the writer.
Oh,
of
I
that
can
book.
imagine.
Like,
Because
going back and visiting the most iconic comic moments.
the writing is very much like Jim Shooter's writing, like dialogue wise, but then they just threw in like a modern day writing of Daredevil. So I'm like, it clashes. It just clashes.
Yeah.
I mean, we kind of saw that in Deadpool and Wolverine, right? Where it's like
Right.
he is going all these different points. Where he's even the
Mhm.
Jose. I know you had to be geeking out when you saw the Wolverine crucifixion.
Oh
cover.
yeah.
I was like,
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
they brought that back.
100%. That was, and then like they did the Rob Liefeld's feet at the end, like the shoe store
Yep.
at the very end.
Just feet.
I was like, oh, they know what they're doing here. I was like geeking out in the theater. Yeah, 100%.
Also, how about I just realized this the other day? How about comic accurate Wolverine? His only like flaw is that he was short. Like all the other ones attack Deadpool or die. And this one, he's just like, oh, he's too short, and Deadpool never goes back to him. Never even asks him if he wants to.
Never.
Right.
It would have been funny if he showed back up at the end.
Yes.
Like if some of the Wolverine variants showed up to fight some of the Deadpool army or Deadpool whatever.
Wow. I didn't even think about that. That would have been fun.
And did you see the concept art for the Deadpool Wolverine mashup? That was badass. They should have had that one in there somewhere.
That was super badass.
Some of my final notes I had, Doom dealing with the cosmic power for the first time. I loved when he realizes just how powerful he is. It was almost like the
Power cosmic.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Peter Parker dealing with his spider powers for the first time, like, and just being like, oh my god, like I don't know what I can control. I hear everything, I see everything.
It reminds me of, I don't know if you read it yet. I know I went last time I took you to the comic book store in Vegas, you bought Superman for All Seasons, correct?
I did read it. Yep.
So All-Star Superman, which is probably 1A, 1B for the best Superman graphic novels ever. That's a Grant Morrison one. Lex Luthor gets Superman's powers, and he's just like, oh my god, this is what he sees all the time. Like he can see things on subatomic level, he can see sound, he can hear light, and he's like, he can hear all the cries for help. And Lex Luthor all of a sudden becomes a good guy because he
gets it.
He's like, I get it. I totally get it. And like that's what this reminds me of, when Doom sees everything that he could have.
And then it's like later he realizes he basically can't use or lose his powers. Like he's like, if I, for a second have any kind of, if I fall asleep, if I lose concentration, everything can be destroyed. But he also, like, he can't lose those powers. He's so determined to keep the powers. So it does make him so overpowered, obviously, by the end when he kills all, quote unquote, kills all the heroes and stuff. But it nerfs him a little bit in that way where it's like, well, he can't even really use the powers, and he tries to get like the Beyonder to like 1v1 him as well, and he's like fucking 1v1.
There is I've talked about it way early, and I know I've talked to Robbie about it in person. There's a very good what if story of what if Doom kept the Beyonder's powers and actually beat the heroes, and he eventually gets the Infinity Gauntlet with the Beyonder's powers, and then fights he fights like the cosmic gods from the Eternal movies that you see. And beats, and it's like a centuries long battle, and wins. He wipes them all out, and he becomes the god of the universe. And at this point in time, like Earth has been knocked off its axis and is like careening through Earth and is back into another ice age. And then Doom is like, he's achieved everything he wanted, but he goes, there's nothing else. But he sees humanity trying to survive. So he restarts time, basically. Like he goes back to like 1940s and is just a farmer, and he's happy. And he's just happy being a farmer.
I almost felt like when he realizes his power and the insignificance of everything, and he's in space, obviously, I said Dr. Doom became Dr. Manhattan almost, where he's kind of just like,
that's a good shout.
Yeah.
A good shout.
Random note I had. This one scene where we have the Enchantress talking to the Elemental, and she tells them all about the Beyonder.
Oh, yeah.
Here, she looks like Taylor Swift.
A little bit.
Nice. Good call.
A little bit.
There's
the rest
also
of the panel she really doesn't, but that one she kind of did.
It's so that scene right there sets up Secret Wars 2 a little bit. Same thing as when Enchantress makes that deal with Volcana at the end for like, remember when Enchantress like teleports Volcana to Molecule Man?
Yeah,
that kind of comes back into play into Secret Wars 2 as well, where you also get an actual physical embodiment of the Beyonder in Secret Wars 2. But this touches upon it.
God.
Oh, it's such a good. That one was a
So
little silly to me.
cool.
That with
I mean,
little
it's silly
monsters,
when the monsters just show up. I was like, oh, this
Yeah.
is again, this is the thing people criticize current Marvel movies for, where when there's 10 minutes left, they're like, here's a bunch of CGI monsters.
Yeah, exactly.
But they'll definitely do that in the movie, I assume.
But the Beyonder, they haven't used him a lot, and I think that's a good thing. They don't want him to they don't want him to be like the Carnage, the Venom, the Ultron, where he just pops in whenever you need to sell stuff. But he is without question one of the probably 5 most powerful beings, and he is from the Beyondverse, which is beyond the multiverse, and he is basically a child compared to the other Beyonders, which is why when Doom gets the powers, if Doom got the powers and went to the Beyondverse, the actual like matured Beyonders would wipe the floor with him. Like this Beyonder is basically a kid who is just literally, this kid is playing with action figures in a world. Instead of action figures, they're superpowers, because his origin story is Molecule Man was a scientist that was working on I can't remember what he was working on, but like he had an accident in the lab that gave him his powers, but that accident opened up like a rip in the universe that bled, and the Beyondverse bled into it. So the Beyonder experienced human hope, hatred, love. He felt human emotions for the first time. So he goes, let's see what they can do, and just threw them all on a planet.
And he wanted to see like what they were asking for, right?
Exactly.
Like once they were to defeat their enemies, what would they ask me for? What are their desires?
The Beyondverse is also because things have leaked through before from the Beyondverse, and that is what leads to the Cosmic Cube. That was in the movie, right?
Yeah,
in the
first Avengers.
So the Cosmic Cube is like spillage from the Beyondverse,
which then they made captured. Like on the inside of it was the Space Stone. It's like they broke the Cosmic Cube and the Space Stone was on the end. They kind of like combined the two things into one.
I guess that works for the movies.
The Tesseract,
yeah.
But yeah, pretty much my final note was like I liked She-Hulk swapping spots with the Thing. They just had a costume ready to go for her and stuff. The whole leotard ready to go.
Well, and they had the costume maker.
True, they did. Yeah, they had the special one. If you buy the current edition of it, they do include a lot of cool covers, pictures of the toys in the back. There's a really good forward. Who's the forward by? It's the forward from '92 from Tom DeFalco. And it tells you all about, the history of why they had to do this. And they refer to DC a bunch as dreaded competition. I always love that. But yeah, Secret Wars. We did the first one. I hope everyone read it, and I hope everyone had a good time reading it. Clem, did you have a good time reading your first comic in years?
Yeah, I did. Again, it was much different than I expected based on hearing about Secret Wars, but lots of fun. The whole X-Men versus Avengers dynamic was cool. And the X-Men were a little less in it than I thought, but I always thought of this. I mean, you see it in the cover. Like, they're leading with the Avengers guys. So, and the Avengers held up pretty well considering what they were at the time, like Jose said. And I feel like the X-Men were pretty hot during that time. So.
The X-Men were red. They were scorching hot at this time.
I mean, and again, I guess I have to address this now. My guy, Iron Man, wearing roller skates was a tough look.
The roller skates panel was crazy.
I forgot about that. That's so funny.
The roller skates panel was hysterical. You just fucking it's almost like the Batman and Robin when they click their heels and have ice skates.
And there's like other heroes like Photon, Captain Marvel. We didn't really talk about.
Yeah, we didn't mention her. Yeah, Captain Marvel. Hawkeye was Carol Danvers.
Hawkeye was just kind of there, just doing his thing.
Yeah.
Hulk. This is not my favorite iteration of the Hulk in this. Like he's called.
He's Smart Hulk. Yeah, we didn't even really.
I'm not
talk about that.
I'm not a huge fan. He's only smart because of so much gamma interaction, or he had so much gamma around him that he gets Bruce Banner's brain. That goes away real quick because this is not Professor Hulk. Professor Hulk is like later in the 90s and in the 90s. That rules. This Hulk in Secret Wars is what they used in the movies, the MCU.
Like when they did Infinity War and Endgame, which I'm curious. I know the Russos are such big fans of Secret Wars. Like they're like, we like the Infinity Gauntlet stuff, but we grew up on Secret Wars. Like that's the stuff we love. It makes sense that they would take some things from that, but I wonder if now they regret not saving it for Secret Wars. I don't know.
It would be interesting. It would be interesting. But yeah,
because at this point, it's like, are you going to do Avengers, Doomsday, and Secret Wars, 2 more movies of Smart Hulk the current way we've seen him, you know, in the previous things? I feel like you almost have to revert him back to Hulk smash at some point.
Was Hulk popular back then, Jose? Was he like? I feel like he was a big deal.
He was. Because of the TV show with Lou Ferrigno. Obviously, he was very popular. So just the name itself. This Hulk was very popular because it was very 80s. The scene when he fought Daredevil, but this is when he was a mindless Hulk again in the Daredevil Frank Miller run, is iconic. That is one of the 10 out of 10 single issues you'll read of the 80s, because Hulk beats the fuck out of Daredevil. And this is the beginning of when, Hulk rules. This is the beginning of like when he becomes dumb again, then it starts to like take off of like, oh, Hulk has, from that point on, in my opinion, some people don't like it. I think it's been home run after home run for the Hulk.
Okay.
I know you're a big Hulk guy.
Idiot. He's not just the lumbering idiot. Like at the beginning, I'll end with this on Hulk. Remember at the beginning I said in hindsight, the heroes are are more overpowered than the villains. Yeah. In hindsight, the way the comic book world MCU is now, you could have had just Hulk and all of those villains, and Hulk would have crushed them. He don't need Thor. Hulk would have beaten Galactus. The Hulk right now would have beaten up and eaten Galactus.
Come get some Galactus. Come get some.
The Immortal Hulk. I'll put it all. This is the way there's a scene in Immortal Hulk where it flashes to the end of time. They don't explain what happens, but everything is black. There's no stars. There's no life. There's no planet. There is a singular floating asteroid, and it is Bruce Banner. And then God, the one above all, shows up and he goes, "What are you still doing here?" And then he looks up and he turns into the Hulk, and Hulk eats God.
Oh, Jesus. Yes.
It's very
metal.
It's so metal.
All right. That was the other real quick, Bob. We have a lot of villains we still have to meet if they're going to do anything like this, or they have to like make these remind us. They kept killing villains in the MCU for some reason.
I assume they're just going to bring all those back. Like that's what I was thinking. I was like, the iconic villains, a lot of them are dead. So I think like you're going to show up and Killmonger is going to be there, and it's going to be like, either it's a variant because they've been doing multiverse variants constantly, or it's just the Beyonder had the power to bring him back somehow.
That's a very,
and you have to do the Beyonder line, like Jose said, it being one of the top 10 most famous lines in Marvel Comics. They have to do that line word for word, right? The whole line.
If they don't do that through the crack in space, pass. That is,
dude, I want to see Secret Wars at the fucking Las Vegas Sphere and see the crack in the sphere show up or something. We need that.
And obviously the most important villain they got to bring in, like Doom. Like I'm excited for Doom. This got me even more hyped for Doom. Doom is very integral to the Fortnite thing right now. So clearly they're getting it all going. And obviously Robert Downey Jr. is going to be a big part of that.
If they have Doom, you have to also have Mephisto, which means
that was the other thing. Doom's mom and her soul is being held captive by Mephisto. Metal. I read that and I was like, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I love that man never shows up, just like in the fucking MCU. He's talked about and not
no way, man.
That's very
all right.
Yeah.
That was our Secret Wars comic book club. Let us know what you would like us to do next comic book club of. I know we've talked about other Secret Wars stuff, but we could hop around. We could do a DC thing first. We can go all around. So this is a new segment. I hope it's a hit. And we'll see you next week for more Penguin recaps.